involve, or did you consider involving a dedicated business person?
So I guess I kind of was the dedicated business person.
Well, I mean, in terms of background, in terms of, startup, teaming up with someone with MBA.
So we didn't consider teaming up with somebody on the other. So the other person I started the company with, his background is in computer science, so he was doing all the coding, and I was doing the business part of it. But we didn't consider just hiring an MBA to do it. Basically, the lesson that we learned is, even if you hire an MBA to do it, like if you're the entrepreneur, it's your vision, and you're, at the end of the day, the one that people are going to believe, like those early adopters. They're not going to believe the MBA who is translating what you told them, and then they say, like, just, can you tell me what it is? And they just wanted to hear you say, like, it's this. So there was no fancy wrapper that you could put around it. It just heard stuff. If you just went in and talked to people and said, this is what it is, and they were very willing to listen. Yeah?
How do you build up your credibility? Like when you ask for something like credit card of mine, I wouldn't give it to you.
Yeah, but the short answer is we didn't, right? Like, we just told them this is what it is, and we said, do you want it? And they said, yes. Like, we didn't need.
No.
What's that?
I said no.
Then they said no, we moved on to the next guy. And so what we learned is, what's that? Right, the right guy, like, you're credible because you have what he wants, right? It's these other people that tell you don't have credibility that are confusing the matter.
But they have to trust you.
Yeah, he trusted us because he saw our presentation. He was like, yes, I want that. And he's like, give me one. He didn't even ask the price. First customer did not ask the price. He like took out his card. He's like, call my assistant, get the PO. I was like, who's this guy? But I had no credibility, zero. If anything, I had negative credibility because I was in somebody else's office. So that's what I was saying. It's different customers. Later on, right, you can use your successes with your first customers as credibility for your second customers. But for your first customers, like, it's just you. Like, they either want what you have or they don't. What's that? Yeah. But it wasn't that they liked my face. It was that they liked the product. Like, he really wanted the product. He didn't want me. He's like, send me one of those. Right? So he liked the product. And he's like, I want it. It was simple. It's just like going to McDonald's and you're like, I want number 3. That's it. So he wanted it. But the later people, yes, they're asking for this credibility, and we're like, oh, well, the first guy did it. Are you like him? And they'd be like, well, yes, I am like him. And I'm like, well, you'd probably like it too. Yeah?
Did you actually ever have customers that initially said no, but after seeing somebody else do it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I even remember, so when we changed the price to $120,000, there was a particular guy who's like, this company will never pay that. And sure enough, 9 months later, they paid. And I reminded him, so we flew, so they're on the West Coast. So as a reminder, we flew Lou Malnati's deep dish Chicago-style pizza to their office with a nice note that said, thanks for signing up. So now we're the pizza guys. Yeah?
Any reason for staying in Chicago and not like Mountain View or something?
I'm sorry?
Any reason for staying in Chicago and not the Valley?
Only because I grew up there. My friends are there, and initially my sort of business support structure was there. But our investors are in the Valley, and maybe one day I'll go to the Valley. But I think like our customers are all over the world, so the benefit that you get from the Valley would be more like human resources and the VC community being out there. If you're going to stay here, I think it would be important to sort of get yourself in the mix of what's going out there. I know tons of people in the Valley, but do you necessarily need to be physically located in Silicon Valley? I don't think so. Like, other companies have been successful in other cities. It's not the universe doesn't end when you go over the Bay Bridge. Yeah.
So one thing that you kind of feel in Silicon Valley is that you have a lot of startups around you. You
Absolutely.
go to a cafe, you have like 7 people around you are doing a startup.
Absolutely.
And
the expectation is that you should be starting a company if you're not right now.
that's right. But
It's not like that, Chicago.
right. So where do you get like your community of other companies?
Sure. So that's why I started Board Camp and Board Sessions, to try to get them to sort of come to us, and they actually have started. There's a lot of things in Chicago. There's like groups that have formed for entrepreneurs, not necessarily as sophisticated as Silicon Valley, but still like hundreds of tech cocktail, like hundreds of people come. There's like founders dinners where just a bunch of founders in Chicago get together and talk shop. But also I know tons of people in the Valley. Going to conferences, you meet tons of people. So I mean, I feel like my entrepreneurial network is all over the world because I like tried to build it that way. Maybe it's easier to do it in Silicon Valley, but I just like talking to people, so it doesn't seem to matter. Yeah.
So when you say you're talking to these companies like Procter & Gamble and Black & Decker and things,
Yeah.
how are you getting to talk to the right person instead of just going through customer service? Like, how do you get those phone numbers? Just connections, or?
Yeah, so initially, the way we did it was Google. We go to Google Maps and type in the name of the company, and then it gives you the corporate number. It's really hard to find, it's not on the site. But then the next thing we did is we would join industry associations. And so we'd go to like the conference, and then it would be like a conference of 1,000 people, and this guy would be Procter & Gamble, this guy would be Black & Decker. And like, to them, they're just like, going to the conference. And to us, they're like, wow, look at all the customers in one room. Amazing. So I actually like memorized the name list for this conference. So like when people would walk up, I'd be like, oh, I know you. And I just like go into like, how's P&G? Like, how's Cincinnati? Because I remember from the list, like he was Procter & Gamble, that was his name. And then, so we started building that to, within the industry organization, you could just contact the person directly. And then what would happen, once we get that flywheel going, is people would go from one company to another, like now I work at P&G, now I work at Gillette, now I work at Avon. And so then they would call us up when they got to the new company. And also they would tell their friends, because they all go to the same industry association. So if you do a good job for them, then they have these like things where they say, well, what's best practices in hair care? And like, oh, well, you need to check out innovation from Inventables. And then we get a call from like their competitor or somebody else in their industry organization and say like, yes, I'm interested in learning more about your services. And be like, oh, how did you find out? I'm like, oh, so-and-so told me from that discount. So we're like, oh, interesting. So basically, if you got to get a few to get the wheel going, but once you do a good job, people like telling about you to other people. Yeah.
What would you say is the best way to get like employees when you're like, you're like 1-year-old company or whatever, and you might not have like an established presence yet, like getting students or whatever to work for you?
Yeah, so just try to put on your website the values of the people that you want to work there. And you basically your values at that point, because it's just you. And other people, when they come across this, it will resonate with them and be like, I want to work on that. Talk about what you're doing, all the interesting things you're doing, like what you believe in. And people, it's kind of like when you're starting a nonprofit, people want to work at nonprofits because they believe in the mission and the values of that entity. It's the same thing with employees at companies, right? Like people who believe in what you're doing and have the same values as you will be attracted to you. So they're looking for you right now, you just gotta make them known. The best way to do it is to write it down on your website, show pictures of like you living it, and then you just want to be like a magnet. Yeah.
When you first started, did you have any mentor or did you have someone to help you with some of the hard decisions?
Yeah, anyone who would listen. I talk to everyone. Professors, entrepreneurs that come to stuff like this, other students, my dad. Anyone that would give me 5 minutes, I would ask them questions.
But then you have so many people, how did you choose advice?
Exactly, right? So everybody, what I learned is everybody's giving you advice from their perspective, right? So all that really matters is what I thought. So I would just kind of like say like, okay, well, if this guy is saying it, well, he's a consultant and he's saying it from this perspective. And you ask somebody else who's an entrepreneur, and they say it from their perspective. And I would just try to understand what perspective were they giving me this advice for, and decide what the decision was for me. Yeah?
So the company that you sold to, the bigger one in Chicago,
Yeah.
what was that company really about?
It was custom software.
Okay, so what did you really sell to the guy?
So we sold the client relationships, like the ongoing maintenance of the software. And then we also had some hosting clients that were just on our server at Rackspace. We sold them the revenue from that.
And so for the customers for that company, did you get those customers purely through cold calling?
Cold calling, and then from the student group, and then a few over the web, I think.